If you have a true scary story you'd like to share with the channel, just go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to do so. Oh, and give the video a thumbs up if you enjoy it. And of course, thank you. I've had many glitches in the Matrix, but my latest one happened just these past few weeks. For context, I have a shop within my hotel based in Skegness, UK. Around 2 weeks before Christmas, I got a package that I ordered, which was 3 sheets of snowflake vinyl stickers for windows. I was glad they had come because I wanted to make the front of my shop window Christmassy. I wasted no time in getting to it. At a guess, there was around 60 vinyl snowflake stickers, and I enjoyed applying them all to all 3 of my shop front windows. I had to stand along the windowsill to do this, so it was a bit tricky. However, once done, I stood back and was happy with the end results. Fast forward to about a week after Christmas, I knew it was definitely time to take them down, and I was slightly disappointed because I loved how good they looked. However, after all, it was no longer Christmas, so I got to it, and once again standing along the windowsill to remove them. At one point, my foot nearly slipped off the windowsill, and I was getting annoyed at how I really had to dig my nail in to get some of them off. May I add, I was completely alone whilst doing this, just like I was before. Anyway, once they were all down, I got some window cleaner spray and a rag and gave my windows a once-over to wipe down, as you could see a slight outline where some of the stickers had been. I then specifically remember picking up the bunch of stickers that I had stacked on top of each other whilst peeling them away. And I knew there was no point saving them, as 1, I hate clutter of random things not being used, and they wouldn't be used for another year if I was to salvage them. 2, they were very cheap, like literally £1 or less. And 3, I was taking a rubbish bin out to my commercial hotel bins anyway, so I shoved them in a tiny opening at the top, where you tie the black bag up, and off I went to the commercial bins, and tossed the bag inside. Fast forward to the other day, around a month after I removed these stickers, I'm walking from my car after going to the shops, and out of the side of my eye, whilst walking past my shop front, I thought I saw my windows covered in those said snowflake vinyl stickers, from the inside, just like before. I stop in my tracks and pause a second before turning to my right to look at my shop front. What I saw left me dumbfounded to the core. The exact same snowflakes were once again all back on my windows, in the exact same way I had originally applied them. I just stood there frozen, trying to work out what the hell was going on. I went inside and unlocked the door to my shop, which, by the way, only I have the code for it to get in, and I inspected the windows. And sure enough, they were all still there untouched. I have gone over this over and over in my head, and I even went to our handyman who works at the hotel daily, as I remember giving him a wave from the inside of my shop when I was stood on the windowsills removing the snowflakes, and he gave a little giggle at the time, probably because I looked a sight trying to balance on the windowsills. I asked him if he remembered seeing me remove those snowflakes, and he said yes without hesitation. When I led him to my shop front and showed them that they were all still there, he simply asked why I had put them back. To which I obviously went on to tell him that it wasn't me, and the whole story I've just told you guys. He didn't seem amused. It was as if he thought I was trying to play a trick on him, or he thought I was just crazy. Even though he fully remembers himself, me taking them down. I've tried to find the logic, but there is none. Nobody has access to my shop but me. Nobody knows that I threw them away, or even where. Nobody would attempt to go into our big, smelly, dirty commercial bins to dig these out for what? A crazy joke like this that would take a lot of time, and they also had no access to my shop to do this. I'm baffled, just as I am with the many other glitches in my life. I had just left the pool hall in southern Missouri, about 80 miles south of my home, also in Missouri, where I've lived the bulk of my life, and where I've played in pool tournaments too many times to count, over the past 30 years of playing and gambling on various different types of pool, meaning 8, 9, and 10 ball, and sometimes banks, and 14-1. I also travel around the US going to tournaments, and drive sometimes 3,500 miles a week in my job. So, needless to say, I knew my way home. On top of that, my GPS comes on when I start the van, and just out of habit, I hit home on it. About 5 minutes into my drive, my daughter called to ask how I had done in the tournament. We talked for about 25 minutes, when I look up and see a sign that reads Neelyville, 24 miles. I started laughing and told her I'm going the wrong way on Highway 67. Mind you, there's only north and south. So she's laughing at me, making jokes about getting me a nursing home and basically just giving me crap. Because that's what our family does. There's very seldom a punch pulled when there's a laugh to be had. You just have to hope you're the puncher and not the punchline. So, by this time, I've already turned around and had went roughly 15 miles, what would be north, when I come up on a sign that makes me immediately stop and pull over to the shoulder of Highway 67, because the sign reads, Neelyville, 10 miles. I told my daughter that I think I'm either having a stroke, or at home sleeping, or this is a freaking glitch in the Matrix. I then took a picture of the sign and sent it to my daughter 3 times. It would not go through. She saw where I tried, but it said message failed. So, slightly weirded out, I turn around and started heading back the other way, where I don't see any more signs stating miles until I get to a town, within 2 to 3 miles tops. The next one says, Neelyville, population 319. WTF. Please return all trays and headrests to the full and upright position. I drove straight through town, not looking left or right, and then put my cruise control on 75, and had no more glitches all the way home. It's been 3 months, and it still messes with me a lot, because even though I had my cruise on 75 miles per hour, it took me roughly 41 minutes, including both turnaround and the extra miles. It took 41 minutes to make a 2-hour and 15-minute drive. Sorry about the lengths, Raven. I'm a huge fan. Love your voice. I love all you guys, and please be kind to each other, as you never know what someone is going through in their path, and what you say or do could make or break them. Truth, my friend. Much love and thank you. This happened to me the day after Christmas. No drugs, no alcohol, no hangover, nothing. We have 2 pet rabbits, Munch, brown, and Finn, light gray, who, up until recently, shared a cage. Around the beginning of December, they started getting grumpy and territorial, so we now have them in separate cages. One is smaller than the other, but not too small, I promise. You can't even imagine how loved and spoiled these rabbits are. So, every night after they come out for playtime, they switch cages. And this is part of our nightly routine, and we always make sure that they get switched, even if we aren't able to let them out for a long playtime. In the night of Christmas, we let them out to play and put Munch in the larger cage and Finn in the smaller one. I remember thinking that I was glad that Munch got the bigger one, because he refuses to use the litter pan in the smaller one, but Finn does, so I wouldn't have to deal with changing out a bunch of bedding in the morning. I got up and checked on them and topped off their water. I opened up both their cages to give them their morning nose rubs, and they were exactly where they should be. Finn had used his litter pan, like he always does in the smaller cage. I then closed their cage doors and went to the kitchen to grab them apple slices, and they were in the opposite cages. Munch was now in the smaller one and Finn was in the big one. Their cages are kept across the room from each other. Both of the doors were closed after they got their nose rubs, and there is no way they could have opened their doors, switched cages, and reclosed their doors in the 1 minute it took me to grab apple slices from the fridge. Additionally, once they come out, they never go back in until they get all their zoomies out. There is no way that, even if I hadn't closed the door, that they would have just simply gone to the other cage and hopped right in. Still super weirds me out, and I have no explanation at all. No one else was home. I told my fiancé when he got home, and while he doesn't flat out disbelieve me, he thinks maybe I just forgot who was in what cage. I know that I didn't. Sorry this got so long, but I just had to get it out there. Hey Raven. I found your channel today while searching for information on Mandela effects and glitches in the Matrix. So, I was recently on my phone. I noticed that the little weather bar said Sudbury, Massachusetts, 44 degrees. I thought that was weird because I didn't live in Sudbury. I'd never heard of it, actually. I live in western Massachusetts, about 15 minutes from the Vermont border. I searched Sudbury in Google Maps, and Google said that it was about 2 hours from me. However, when I looked at the map, I noticed Sudbury was right outside of Boston, which struck me as odd, because as long as I've been alive, 30 years, Boston has always been a 4+ hour drive from where I live, on the opposite end of Massachusetts. Next, I typed in Boston, and Google still said that it was a little over 2 hours from me. I've driven from where I live to Boston many times over the years. I remember looking at directions on MapQuest that said it was over 4 hours away. Years later, when we used our phones, I still remember Google Maps saying Boston was over 4 hours away from us. I'm pretty freaked out to say the least. I asked my mother, unprompted, how far of a drive is Boston from us? She said, a little over 4 hours. Why? I explained why, and she was equally as freaked out. We thought there may be something wrong with my phone. So she opened Google Maps on her phone, but it yielded the same results when she searched for Boston. So, apparently, Boston is magically 2 hours closer to where we live than when I last checked. Is there anyone from Massachusetts that's experienced the same thing recently? Did my mother and I somehow glitch into an alternate universe? I'm at a loss for words. I tried to explain it away by counting the time for bathroom breaks along the way, wondering if maybe that's why it took us extra time to get there all these years. But we typically stop once along the way when we make the trip, and it's always at the same spot. We grab coffee, use the restroom, and leave in less than 10 minutes. If it was a 2-hour trip all along, then somehow we spent 2 hours getting coffee and using the restroom, and didn't make it to Boston for 4 hours. Also, we both have the same shared memory of MapQuest and Google Maps, saying it was over 4 hours every time. Is the rest stop in some weird time portal? Or am I living in a new reality where Boston is no longer 4 hours from me? I'm sorry if this is repetitive, but thank you for your time, Raven. Love your channel. Thank you. I'm actually not sure where to put this story, but since I have heard and read similar stories of this nature in the glitch section, I decided to take my chances and see if you would be interested in featuring my experience in your glitch series. So here it is. In early October of 2003, one of my older brothers sadly passed away due to a drug overdose at 40 years old. I was 23 at the time. The reason I'm sharing how old I was is to show that I wasn't a kid misremembering something because of a traumatic experience. Also, my older sister experienced this with me firsthand, so it wasn't just me. In the part of the US that we were in at the time, it was already starting to get pretty chilly, even though it was only early October. This is relevant, I promise. Anyway, my whole family was gathered for the viewing just before the service, and my sister and I decided to go up to the casket together to pay our respects and such. We were silently standing side by side next to the casket, and I thought, I hope he doesn't get cold. I thought it. I did not say it out loud, mainly because I immediately knew how silly it was to even think it. Not missing a beat, my sister reached over and patted my hand and said, "Oh, honey, don't worry. He won't get cold. I promise." I looked up at her, obviously startled, and asked, "How did you know that's what I was thinking?" Looking a little confused, she replied, "I heard you say it." I then explained that I had not actually said it. Now, what happened immediately after that is a blank to me, and I assume we just sort of dropped it because it was a very tragic time for our family, and we had a responsibility to receive visitors as they started coming in. But I can say that I brought it up to her during a phone conversation last summer, 2023, and she does remember it as well. She calls it an act of God. I don't know what to call it. I just thought it was a cool experience despite the circumstances. And thank you for reading. Of course, and thank you. And of course, my condolences. Yesterday I was driving to meet my sister. I was not tired, sick, drinking, doing drugs, or distracted in any way. In fact, my memory leading up to it was very acute. I was following a brown truck and passed them. We came to an intersection where I needed to make a left turn, and shortly after would be making a left onto the highway. The left turn light was red, and I stopped. The brown truck went straight, and had a green light, so they passed me. My light turned to a flashing yellow arrow, so I waited for 6 to 7 cars to move through the intersection so that I could make the left. I looked into the rearview mirror, worried the driver behind me might be frustrated with waiting, and saw it was a purplish SUV. I was finally able to make the turn, and saw the SUV follow. But as soon as I finished the turn and looked back forward, my navigation was showing that I needed to turn around, like I was going the wrong way. I was really confused, as I knew that I had been going the right way. I really didn't know where I was, because the area looked totally different. Like there was no highway overpass ahead. I followed the navigation directions, and ended up at the same light, making the same left turn again. At first, I thought maybe I had turned left onto some side street before the highway entrance. But here's the thing. There was no place to turn, because the intersection is right next to the highway. There is no possible way I could have ended up going back onto that road and in that direction without driving at least a quarter of a mile, including passing under the highway overpass, going through 2 lights, making a U-turn, and then going back through all of that before making a right turn to get back onto the original street. Also, it was instantaneous. I did not lose any time. I've had strange experiences before, but nothing like this, and I don't know what to make of it. Someone suggested I add a map showing what happened. There's a link to the map below, on screen during the story. On the map, the solid green line shows the route that I was on up to making the turn. The green dot represents where I should have continued on my path. A red line shows where I ended up as soon as I made the left turn at the light. The red dots show what the navigation was telling me to do when I realized I was no longer on the road headed to the highway. Yellow line shows the jump from where I was to where I ended up. I hope this helps. Also, I know that I was at the same light again, because there are apartments under construction indicated by a blue dot on the map. So there is no mistaking which light I was at. Hi, Raven. This is just a short story of a glitch in the Matrix that, if anything, made me laugh. I'm from Scotland, and in my younger days, I'm 60 now, I loved to go off to Australia to miss out on the miserable Scottish winters and to live in the Aussie sun for a few months. I was young and free, so why not? This was in 1990. I was staying in a backpackers hostel in the far north of Western Australia, in a very small town called, I'm probably going to butcher this, Kununira. It was a small town, but had a fantastic outdoor swimming pool. It was built in a bowl shape, with the surroundings around the pool of mostly grass banking, used by visitors to picnic and others that had an entrance area that had about 20 or 30 concrete steps, maybe 20 feet wide, that led down to the pool area. It was all fenced off around the whole site. Me and a Swiss guy from the backpackers decided to go down for a swim one morning. It was early and midweek, so we were the only ones in the whole pool complex. We were mucking about in the pool, seeing who could swim the furthest underwater and such, when I said to the Swiss guy, it would be great if we had a ball. At that very instant, we heard a ping, 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 ping. We looked to the side, and down the steps came a plastic ball bouncing slowly, and then faster and faster. It reached the bottom, rolled to the poolside, dropped in, and then drifted to right in front of me and stopped. We just looked at each other in utter disbelief. We got out of the pool and went up the concrete steps, thinking there must be a family up there with a child missing a ball. But there was no one. We were literally the only two people in the whole place. It was all so out of the blue, but I've never forgotten about it. Now, it may all just be a coincidence, but it certainly felt like a manifestation of some kind. We both just laughed about it and carried on, now with a ball to muck about with. This probably isn't as big a glitch as most others, and I'm not bothered too much by it, but I still don't have an explanation. So, here we go. Friday evening, I went to a friend's birthday party with my wife. I was driving, so no alcohol for me that night, just saying to rule out intoxication. Before we left, I closed the shutters in all rooms on the ground floor, including those in my study. Fast forward to about 2 a.m., when we returned home, my wife and I had a fight, and both of us went to bed angry. She fell asleep rather quickly, but I was so torn up that I couldn't sleep. So I got up again and went to the study to use the computer. I distinctly remember checking again if the shutters were down when I entered the room, because I hate having them up after dark. By around 5 a.m., I finally felt sleepy again and went back to bed. At 10:30, I was awoken by the postman ringing the doorbell. My wife was still asleep. I decided not to go back to bed, so I made coffee and went to turn on the computer. When I opened the door to the study, I was greeted by morning sun shining through the windows. The shutters were up, and it left me deeply confused for a moment. After she got up, I asked my wife if she had been awake and opened them for some reason while I was asleep. She said no. The shutters are also not electric, so they can't go up through a technical malfunction. If I hadn't focused on them being down in the night, I wouldn't have given it a second thought. But as it is, I don't know how it could have happened. Another possibility that I contemplated and ruled out: it had snowed on Thursday and the snow in the backyard, where the window is facing, is still perfectly untouched. If someone had been on the property and pushed up the shutters, which I'm already not sure if a person can do, there would have been footprints. Hi, Raven. I've been subscribed to your channel for a couple of months now, and I enjoy the stories that you share on your channel. Anyways, I have a short glitch in the Matrix story. The story just recently happened. I just got home from an appointment one morning. I decided to check my email on my phone before turning on my iPad, because I never check my phone, because I prefer to use my iPad. As I was checking my email, I noticed something strange. Quite a handful of the emails were dated either from later this year or next year, 2025. I was baffled by this, so I decided to check the same email on my iPad. When I went through the emails on my iPad, there weren't any of these emails from the future. I'm still baffled by this. I would love to know if anyone else has experienced this, and/or has any logical explanation for this, or if this was truly a glitch in the Matrix. Last Tuesday, I had just gotten off the closing shift at my job. Me and my brother, who share a room with our uncle, were just kind of chilling the rest of the night, and our uncle had been out for the whole day, basically. So we didn't know when he was coming home. Finally, I saw him walk inside the back patio as he closed the sliding door and locked it. I only knew it was him because the tattoos on him and the white tank top he would always wear. The rest of the night wasn't anything out of the ordinary. My uncle would walk around the room in the house, and I even remember seeing him walk into the kitchen to grab something to eat. Finally, I was getting ready to go to sleep at around 2:30, and I remember looking around the room and seeing my uncle lay in his bed. I also remember looking at my brother on his iPad with max brightness and thinking to myself, he should turn down the brightness or he'll bother our uncle. It wasn't until the next morning when I got woken up with a knock at the door, and it was the detectives and my uncle's parole officer. They spoke with my grandma and told her my uncle was in the hospital. I didn't think too much of it because he had gone to the hospital a week prior for stomach issues. An hour later, I got a call from my sister crying, saying my uncle had been hit by a car and was brain dead. For the rest of the day, I thought that this had to have happened sometime after 3 in the morning. Later that night, we found out that it happened around 9:30, while I was at work, and before I even got home. I don't really know what to think of it. Every time I replay the night in my head, it's the same thing over and over again. And I know what I saw, and it's just so weird. So that, my friends, was this week's Glitch in the Matrix collection. A collection of strange, bizarre, and weird stories for your enjoyment. On this, the As the Raven Dreams podcast. I don't usually call it a podcast whenever I'm on my YouTube channel. It's usually just the podcast side of things, so that felt weird. I hope y'all enjoyed these stories. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button. If you're new to the channel and liked what you heard, consider subscribing, as that helps tremendously. If you have a story you want to share with the channel, go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to do so. You can also join Patreon or memberships to get early access to content like this, and other things depending on how you sign up and what you sign up for. There are a lot of things. I'm finalizing this year's posters, and I'm considering just also selling them as a separate thing. But if I do that, I would have to sell them for almost $30 because they cost me a lot of money to get. And in order to make a couple dollars profit, I have to actually sell them for $30. But if you join Patreon for the $10 or $20 membership, you get the poster after a couple months. So it's a win-win on that one. It's kind of like splitting out the payments, is what it is. If you're on the $2 or higher, you also should be getting a sticker too from the channel. So, yeah. The other thing you can do is leave me a comment. This being a Monday video, those comments should include, or could include, the word of the week. The word of the week is whenever I give you a word, you use the word in a sentence in a comment. The next week, or 2 weeks if it's a comp week, the end of the video contains screenshots of your comments that contain the word of the week. It is what it is. It's fun. And a good number of you, cooperate. Cooperate? Participate. On the screen now and several moments prior to now, while I was fumbling over words, is a collection of all of the screenshots of the comments that were left 2 weeks ago with the word of the week. These amazing people went above and beyond and commented prior to this video with the word of the week, and I cannot thank them enough. If you did not comment, that's totally okay. It is never expected. It's just a fun thing we do. And yeah. This week, the word of the week is one that's a little nicer. The word of the week is amiable. A-M-I-A-B-L-E. It means friendly, sociable, and congenial, generally agreeable, pleasing, and admirable. It's just a kind word. You could say amiable is an amiable word. If you want to. I wouldn't. Anyways, I hope you all have a beautiful day. Hope you all having a great week so far. Hope I see you again here very soon, but until then, remember, you are loved, you are valid, you are important, you are the best you that you can be. Do not forget it, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And until I see you again, my friends, much love, and sleep well.